On Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. The show dedicated this morning to our kids. 35 years of helping families and children with sexual abuse. And Sue Ford White's with us. She is the executive director of the organization, which does just fantastic work. When we went to the break, we were just talking about the exams that happen. And it is possible then that maybe a child comes to you and you do the exam and they appear to be fine. That doesn't necessarily mean that they weren't touched.
That's exactly right. You're so good at this. You know, this is what long-term relationships do.
I've learned so much from you. I mean, and I'm still learning, for sure.
So just because there's no injury doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Okay.
And I'm really proud to say that our kids conducted and published an injury prevalence study in 2016 that pretty much put this question to bed. It was published in the American Journal of Pediatric and Adolescent Gynecology. Only 6% of our patients have injury. The thing is, the perpetrator doesn't want to harm the child because they don't want to lose access to the child. So this is why it's a completely different planet than adult sexual assault.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing about it, too, by the way, we talk about you don't find signs of physical injury. The child has suffered emotional trauma, and that's something that you can uncover. You may come in and do a physical. They may do a physical on the child and find no signs. In talking to them, in getting them the counseling they need, you can pick up on it there as well, can't you?
You know, what we say in our field is the very best thing in terms of understanding if it happened or not is if you have the disclosure of a child. If they say, "Granddaddy does this to me,"
okay,
you know, or you know, my cousin or whoever, you know, he likes to do this to this part of my body. He puts his popo in my whatever. So the disclosure is the most important thing. I will say this, that most of our time, most of the social workers' time is spent with the caregiver because what we know and believe is that if we can help them come to ground and if we can affirm, they have every right to be upset, rageful. A lot of them feel total regret because they weren't able to.
How'd they miss it?
Yeah, except for why would you think your own father would sexually abuse your 6-year-old daughter? Like, you know, that's horrible.
Right.
So if we can affirm what they're doing right, if we can affirm the love that they have for their child, if we can do all of those things and help them come to ground and see a way forward and help them understand how important it is to protect the child. Because I'll tell you, the adult survivors, and by the way, if there's anyone watching this morning and you are an adult survivor, I just want to say that you are so courageous. And I just want to say that there's help out there for you. You are not alone. And I'm going to take this opportunity. On our website, ourkidscenter.com, there's also another website that we created, whatifitoldyu.com. And there are all of these. We launched that in 2018 for the sole purpose of getting the message out to the world, really, about the prevalence, the epidemic prevalence of child sexual abuse. But also there are so many. There's a tab if you're a medical provider. There's a tab if you're a concerned caregiver. There's a tab if you're a teenager where you can go into all these resources. And there's a place to click if you're an adult survivor. So what we know is the adult survivors that have disclosed to me, those that told when they were little and they weren't believed, that is the most wounding thing that can happen. It's never too late to heal, but that is really the tremendous wound. So sometimes, often, at least once a week, a caregiver will feel so safe and so dignified by the staff because we give them plenty of time. This is your time, this is your place, this is your space. We really care about your story. How are you doing, Mom? How are you doing, Grandmom? And so many times, at least once a week, they'll say, I've never felt this safe, but this happened to me and I was 7, and it was the older cousin or my grandfather. And so we'll ask them, well, what did you tell? And so many times, you know, in that moment, they will say, they didn't believe me. And then sometimes they say, they blamed me. So what we say in that moment to her is, look what you're doing right. You've brought your child here. She will have what you never had.
Right.
Oh my God, what a gift. You know, like this is healing. You know, this is healing. And, you know, if we work with the caregiver, if they can become emotionally available to their child, positive outcomes are so much more likely. And the other thing, Nick, is children are still children. Half of our patients are 7 years of age and younger. And they still get to pick out a brand new toy after the exam and a brand new book, and they're still children. So when people say, oh, this is the worst thing in the world, you know, tainted, tarnished for life, no. There is still love. There is still joy. There is still beauty. You know, there is. And that's why it's so important for us and for all of us. There's never been a better time to just really dial into this issue, to support the people that are doing this work, the child advocacy centers, and certainly, you know, our kids. We're having this special 35th anniversary celebration campaign this week. So people will be seeing things online and Facebook and other social media platforms. And we're encouraging people to think about courage, the courage to educate yourself, the courage that children have to disclose, the courage that the caregivers demonstrate in coming to ground and dealing with this, the courage that the staff at our kids, child advocacy centers, Department of Children's Service staff, law enforcement, everyone, this courage to be in this work is big. And I think the courage of our fabulous Our Kids board, all of our contributors that are so loyal and generous, it takes courage to say, this is going to be a priority for me, you know?
It has to be, because like you said, it's an epidemic. And I was just thinking about, as you're talking about the caregiver and the victims and all this, and I don't know if you know, just over all the years that you've watched this and seen the various cases, is there any type of profile for the typical offender? And as you said, it spans across all fields, demographics, socioeconomic, but we do more stories where there are police-involved stings arresting these scumbags, responding to ads in back pages or somewhere on social media to show up somewhere and have sex with a child. And it happens over and over again. These morons keep responding to these things that are almost always scams, thank goodness, and they nail them. And I keep seeing this, and it's time after time, these arrests, and they're all showing up trying to have sex with kids. And I'm like, so what is there any type of profile? First of all, let's be real clear on this. It happens with women, but the vast majority of offenders are men.
Yes.
Period. No, it's period. No, everyone's equal. No, it's men. Men are the scumbags on this most of the time. So what is the profile? Is there a profile? It can't be socioeconomic, but is it a myth, if you were abused yourself, that you would be an abuser later in life? I think that's not a fair statement to make. I think many who were abused know how horrible it was, and that's the last thing they would ever do to their own child.
So first of all, I just want to tell everybody out there, I love you, and I love it when you get so fierce and strong about this.
I have to cover this crap.
I know.
And it makes me so mad.
So, you know, it is terrible, and I will say this, that with social media and all these apps on phones, we're seeing more and more children lured into absolutely horrible, terrifying situations.
The human trafficking, they get brought in and sold.
So these kids, all they want to do is, like, you know, maybe hook up with a 14-year-old if they're 12 or whatever, and they just want a little attention, or they just want a new friend, or, you know, or they're going through adolescence, and it's, you know, their parents don't understand them. I mean, I used to be like that. So, and then they think that they are building this relationship with a 14-year-old, and they show up someplace, and it's a 37-year-old man. And they're a deer in the headlights. So, so here for us, one of the struggles, and on ourkidscenter.com, we have a piece of literature that talks about keeping kids safe online, and it really is about. I mean, there is no such thing as benign neglect anymore in terms of, here's the phone, do whatever you want to. No, it's really, really dangerous out there. And the latest thing, and I think you have covered this, sextortion is the latest.